Hi everyone, my name is Alan and I'm a nursing graduate who just recently took the ATI Comprehensive Predictor. If you're stressing about how to pass your exam in the next 10 weeks, don't worry, I got you. I'm going to break down what I did for my studies in order to help you guys pass as well. To preface, this was my score on the ATI Comprehensive Predictor. I had a 99% probability of passing my NCLEX. In this video, I'm going over the RN ATI Comprehensive Predictor, the 10-week breakdown, how to actually study, and some final thoughts and advice for you. What is the RN ATI Comprehensive Predictor? So this exam is designed to assess a nursing student's readiness for the NCLEX RN. And it's composed of 180 questions, some multiple choice questions, SATAs, NGNs, and not all of the questions count for points, but you're not going to know which ones. Scores are typically presented as a pass or fail indicator, and the format looks just like any other ATI proctored exam. So before I start, I wanted to tell you guys that I did upload my personal study guide for the exit exam on my Etsy shop called Zelchi. Feel free to scan this QR code or click the link below if you want to check it out. Make sure to study well for this exam so that you don't have to study that hard for your NCLEX. Number 1, create your 10-week template. You can use your calendar, your planner, or whatever you're used to create your 10-week plan. But if you don't have one already, I did create a 10-week template that you can access on Canva by scanning the QR code on the top right corner. So in this planner, I had to include every single thing that I was planning to do for the next 10 weeks, including my assignments, my clinical dates, my errands, personal errands, exam dates, and any school-related information. I also highly suggest printing copies to keep on your wall, your desk, your door, and even in your backpack so that you always have it on you at all times. And lastly, every time I needed to review a topic, I would write it down on the day that I plan to review that. So for example, on Tuesday, I can put maternal newborn vital signs. Number 2, break down your assignments into goals. I categorized everything I had to do into different days of the week, and my in-person class was on a Tuesday. So for Monday, I would put all of my ATI assignments like dynamic quizzing, board vitals, and capstone requirements, and then by Tuesday, it's all done and I'm ready to learn. And one of the reasons why my notes are so specific is because I actually used to crash one of my other professors' Monday classes. He is a very, very amazing professor who is actually one of the NCLEX question writers. So he knew a lot about what to study for exit and NCLEX. So I would crash that class and make sure that I put all my notes together by Wednesdays. Number 3, stick to your study plan. The effort that you put in will match your outcome. So if you don't discipline yourself now, then you don't get to cry about being scared or nervous later. I'm just kidding, but make sure to put in your work. For weeks 1 to 3, the first thing you have to do is to know your weakness. You should write down every terminology that you don't understand. Can you actively recall diseases? For example, do you know what SIADH is, DKA? If not, then you should create stories or mnemonics to help you remember them without looking at your notes. Number 2, use your resources. For me, Archer videos worked for the first 3 weeks. I actually bought my membership to time it perfectly to end after I took my NCLEX. Other resources include pharmacology podcasts on Spotify, YouTube, or adding anything that you learn from class into your study guide. Number 3, print graphics or create flashcards. You should print free graphics that you find online or make a poster or whatever works for you and put it all over your room. For me, I put my GI medications in the bathroom, my mental health meds in front of my desk, my heart meds in the shower, and graphics about donning and doffing PPE in front of my closet door so that I would practice it each time I opened that door. Here are some examples that I found on TikTok that helped me personally, and by the time my exam rolled around, I had all of them memorized. Next, we have week 4 through 6. The first thing I did was read the ATI Blue Book. I recommend reading this book on your free time and going through it and annotating specific areas that you lack knowledge in, especially for topics that are very difficult to digest. Number 2, Capstone Rationales and Remediation. So whenever I would take my capstone quizzes, I would go through them and read through the rationales and take those same rationales and add them into my study guide based on the topic. For my study guide, I focused mainly on the signs and symptoms and nursing interventions. Then throughout the weeks, I would highlight, bold, and emphasize any important information that my professor would say or things that I would find or learn on my online resources. Number 3, create memorization techniques. Here's an example of one memory trick that I created. So for epoetin alpha, epoetin, if I'm saying that correctly, sounds like erythropoiesis for me, which is red blood cell production, and epoetin alpha increases the intake of iron to help stimulate the RBC production. For filgastrin, the FIL sounds like film, and for me, filgastrin or white blood cells are the Hollywood of blood cells. So yeah, film, I don't know, it's kind of dumb, but this is just how my brain works. And for oprelvicin, I just kind of, every time I wrote this word down, I would make the K in oprelvicin capital and orange and bold, which reminds me of vitamin K, and that helps with clotting, blood clotting. Number 4, pharmacology active recall. So we're still in weeks 4 through 6, and what I would do is I would buy a whiteboard from Daiso, and this is how I practice my active recall. I would take a topic from my study guide and write that topic on my whiteboard, and then after that I would try to write all the signs and symptoms that I could remember myself until I get all of them down without looking at my study guide. Lastly, number 5, practice NCLEX questions. This video is not sponsored, but I owe it a lot to NCLEX for all of the nursing banks and questions that they have available for ATI exit exams. It's kind of expensive, so I recommend getting a group of your nursing friends and splitting a 1-month membership to take time and review these questions. So how I used NCLEX was going through every single nursing bank for ATI exit, and I would take those questions and actually input them into my study guide, categorizing them by topic. So here's an example of one of my notes. Here I have electrical hazards. I would write the signs and symptoms from my ATI book, Capstone, Batty. I would input all that information for my notes, but underneath I would insert a box and write the question directly from NCLEX with the answer right below it. This way, whenever I reviewed my study guide, I was able to review my questions along with them. So here I'm inserting a 2x1 table into my document right under my notes. Then you can write the question, the answer, and then change the color of the background using this drop paint at the top right corner, and then change the outline of the box from black to white. Honestly, throughout my study guides, it's all tables, and it makes it look so nice and clean and organized. Okay, now we're at week 7 through 9. Number 1, ATI book review and study guide review. I created my notes on Google Docs, and one of the coolest things that they added right when I first made my study guide was having the tab options on the left side. So now you can have multiple documents into one doc, if that makes sense. Here I'm going to show you guys how I organized my study guide. So in the first page, I have the legend and the tabs or topic names. There's a cursor parking lot because a lot of my friends also used my study guide to study. And at the very front of the page, I put random important notes that my professor was kind of spewing out like way too close to exam day, and I wanted to make sure that I saw them or reviewed them at least once or twice. And at the bottom, I inputted links to my other study guides in case I needed to reference a specific class or topic. So if we look at the left side, I have common toxicities, fundamentals, pharmacology, med-surg, mental health, maternal newborn, and pediatrics. This is a pediatric timeline that I created, and it was actually my professor's idea. He said to take the age, put it in the middle. On the right side, put all of the milestones, and then on the left side, put all of the required vaccinations that they need for that age. So in here, I also included some mnemonics like 2B Dr. Hip H, and some extra Easter eggs that he also gave us during our class. All in all, my study guide took me so many hours to create in order to include every single thing that I learned during the last 10 weeks of my term. Number 2, I stopped using Archer and I focused on ATI CAT and dynamic quizzes. Under dynamic quizzes, there's standard quizzes, and I actually took a lot of the quizzes from there, like the pharmacology final, med-surg final, pediatric final, and honestly, to me, I think they helped, and the information I got from that I also implemented into my study guide. But for now, let's click on dynamic quizzes. I didn't do that well, so please don't judge my score. I think I was averaging like 50% per dynamic quiz. To make your own quiz, you're gonna click New Custom Quiz. I always chose Adaptive CAT because I didn't want to do 200 questions at a time. I think this one stops at 85 if you do really well. Sometimes it'll go overboard if you're not on the right track. I'm just gonna clear all of the subjects, and for me, I struggled with maternal newborn, so let's do this for an example. So for CAT, I'm just gonna guess here, just for example, it's gonna do the full 85 questions, and after that, you'll see what you got wrong and you'll be able to see the rationales. Then I would take the rationales and input them back into my study guide. Number 3, pay attention to the ATI live review. I'm not sure when it is for everyone, but I'm pretty sure every campus that uses ATI has this. So a representative is going to come to your campus and they're going to lecture you for 2 days or 3 days. I can't remember anymore. On the left side, I created a separate NCLEX live review tab for me to write all of my notes on there specifically. I was pretty lucky because I had a really good live review person, and she was telling my class a lot of really good important notes, and I wrote down all of her tips and tricks and all of the questions that we went over. A lot of these helped so much because there were certain questions where I didn't understand why that was the answer, but it was, and this allowed me to review it afterwards. Anyways, this whole thing was just about 3 days worth of ATI live review, and honestly, I knew most of them already because I had been working on my study guide for almost 9 weeks by this time. Number 4, I did the comprehensive A and B one more time just to kind of read the rationales and practice the NGMs. By week 7, I actually had my study guide completed and fully memorized. All of the graphics and the mnemonics that I created, memory tricks, I had them all memorized. So for my NCLEX, it only took me like less than 16 hours to study. Honestly, like 2 days, and I passed at 85 questions. Finally, it's gonna be week 10. You're gonna be really exhausted, so go ahead and cry and cry and cry everything out at this point. You want to practice your active recall again, and the night before, make sure to review your notes and get some practice questions. Or not, some people say just get some sleep. I personally cannot because I have anxiety with testing, so you know I stayed up. Anyways, make sure to eat something that morning of so that you don't pass out from hunger. And some final thoughts. My final advice is to stay consistent. Repetition is key, and reviewing your weak areas is definitely gonna help you pass not only this exam but also your NCLEX. Thank you so much if you made it this far. This is my first ever video. Let me know if it was helpful to you. And please comment down below if there's something you want me to go over, like a topic or maybe some advice on how to create notes. But yeah, anything, just let me know down below.